June 5, 1944, 23:45 hours. A cramped, stale-smoking Nissen hut near the French coastline, blanketed by the oppressive blackout of a world at war. Outside, the wind whips off the English Channel, rattling the corrugated iron roof. Inside, the only light comes from the soft orange glow of vacuum tubes and the faint illumination of a dial on a massive Lorenz radio receiver. At the console, his headphones clamping a world of static onto his ears, sits Leutnant Hermann Rittner. His uniform jacket is unbuttoned. A cup of cold ersatz coffee sits forgotten by his elbow. For hours, it has been the same. The hiss and crackle of the ether, the occasional routine traffic between distant German outposts. Monotony is his enemy as much as the Allies. Then, a signal. Sharp, clear, cutting through the white noise like a scalpel. His body tenses, his spine straightening from its slouch. His fingers fly to the fine-tuning dial, his eyes squinting as he scribbles the Morse code onto a pad. It's not the familiar, slightly sloppy fist of the British operators they've grown accustomed to. This is different, fast, professional, urgent. He deciphers it as it flows. It's a call sign he knows, but one that shouldn't be here, not this close to the front. The message is terse, a request for authentication, a fragment of coordinates that place the sender behind them. A cold knot tightens in his stomach. He alerts his superior, Feldwebel-Meyer, a man whose face is a roadmap of Eastern Front winters. Another signal, on a different frequency, overlapping. Then another. The airwaves, dead for so long, are suddenly screaming with life. Meyer leans over Rittner's shoulder, his shadow swallowing the glowing dial. "Who is it?" he whispers, the question hanging in the smoke-filled air. Rittner doesn't look up, his hand a frantic piston.
The word lands like a physical blow. Airborne troops, behind their lines. The two men lock eyes for a single paralyzing second. The sheer, impossible volume of the traffic is what convinces them. This isn't a lone, lost patrol. This is the vanguard of something massive, an invasion, starting not on the beaches, but in their rear areas. The static in the headphones is no longer empty. It is now filled with the ghosts of 10,000 men, a phantom army materializing in the dark, its presence announced only by the frantic dance of a needle and the crackle of Morse code. The carefully constructed calm of the Normandy coast is shattered, not by the roar of bombers or the thunder of naval guns, but by a whisper in the air. A whisper that is about to summon a storm. The phantom invasion escalates with terrifying speed. Rittner's hut becomes the frantic, buzzing nerve center of a battle being fought entirely in the invisible spectrum. The radio traffic is a masterpiece of verisimilitude. It's not just one stream of commands, but a cacophony of a dozen different networks, all operating simultaneously, creating the sonic tapestry of a vast, chaotic military operation coming to life. You can almost hear the panicked young lieutenant, his voice translated into staccato dots and dashes, reporting engine trouble with his landing craft. A few frequencies away, a seasoned sergeant major barks coordinates for a supply drop, his transmission cutting in and out with simulated atmospheric interference. Then the clincher. A high-level command channel, using what appears to be a flawless British cipher, authorizes the deployment of brigade headquarters to a grid reference just 10 miles inland. The messages are layered with authentic military jargon, correct call sign procedures, and even the subtle, habitual quirks of individual British operators they had logged over months of listening. This was no amateur effort. Feldwebel-Meyer, his face pale under the dim light, grabs the field telephone. His voice is a low, urgent growl as he relays the intelligence up the chain of command. Confirmed multiple enemy regiment-level signals. Airborne elements reported at Grid 42. Breakout attempts expected at dawn. He paints a picture with Rittner's transcripts, a picture of a dagger aimed at the heart of their coastal defenses from behind.
And the German war machine, honed for rapid response, swallows the bait whole. Within the hour, the night outside is no longer quiet. The deep-throated grumble of Panzer IVs firing up their engines rumbles through the ground. Headlamps, slitted for blackout, slice through the darkness as armored columns peeled off from their defensive positions along the coast and begin racing inland, toward the Ghost Army. Precious reserves, a battalion of grenadiers, a company of deadly 88mm flak guns, are rerouted. The entire local defense strategy, meticulously planned for an assault from the sea, is being unraveled in real time based on the whispers Rittner is plucking from the air. Back in the hut, Rittner feels a different kind of chill. The sheer scale of the German reaction is staggering. He watches the frantic activity through the one grimy window, the movement of troops he knows are being sent to fight a shadow. A doubt, cold and sharp, begins to needle him. The traffic is perfect, too perfect. It's a symphony of war, but is there a conductor? Is he listening to the opening movements of a real invasion, or is he the audience for the most elaborate radio play ever staged? The fate of entire divisions is now pivoting on his interpretation of the static. The weight of it threatens to crush him. He leans closer to his receiver, trying to find a flaw, a crack in the illusion. But the Phantom Army only grows louder, its signals multiplying, its fictional divisions advancing relentlessly through the ether. The web of deceit is complete, and he is trapped at its very center.
Dawn on June 6th breaks not with the roar of the Phantom Army, but with a distant, earth-shaking thunder from the west. A new sound, one that has nothing to do with radio static. It is the deep, rolling barrage of naval artillery, a sound so immense it feels like the sky itself is tearing apart. Then come the aircraft, not the few scattered reconnaissance planes they were used to, but endless, darkening swarms of bombers, their payloads raining down on the Atlantic Wall fortifications with apocalyptic force. In the radio hut, the reality of the situation crashes down with the force of a 16-inch shell. Rittner rips the headphones from his ears, not from the noise, but from the horrifying, dawning comprehension. The sophisticated, multi-layered radio traffic of the Phantom Army has vanished completely. The frequencies that were screaming with the chaos of an entire invasion force just hours ago are now silent. A dead, hollow hiss has returned. In its place, a new, simpler and brutally direct signal pattern erupts from the direction of the coast. It's the traffic of a real, massive amphibious assault. The messages are raw, fragmented, and frantic. Calls for fire support, casualty reports, landing craft hitting the beach. It lacks the theatrical perfection of the previous night's performance. This is the messy, chaotic, and horrifyingly authentic sound of D-Day. Feldwebel Myers stands frozen by the door, the field telephone handset hanging limp from its cord. The reports coming in are no longer from Rittner's headphones, but from panicked forward observers on the cliffs. They're coming ashore. Mein God, the sea is black with ships. The pieces snap into a devastating, brutal picture. They have been duped, completely and utterly. The elite units, the panzers, the flak batteries, all of it had been pulled away from the real invasion beaches and sent on a wild goose chase into the French countryside. The coast is now horrifyingly vulnerable. Rittner looks down at his transcripts, the pages that had seemed so authoritative just hours before. They are now revealed as worthless. A carefully crafted script designed to mislead. The professional traffic, the authentic quirks, all of it was a lie. A cold fury mixes with a profound sense of professional shame. He wasn't just listening to a ghost. He was the one who gave the ghost a voice, who gave it the power to move armies. He had been outplayed by a master. But who? The question burns in his mind. This was not the work of a single brilliant operator. This was an orchestra of deception, a symphony conducted from some distant, anonymous room in England. The sheer scale of the operation, the coordination, the psychological insight, it was breathtaking. The real invasion wasn't just a military force. It was an idea, a lie that had become more powerful than the truth. And as the real battle for Normandy begins to rage just miles away, a new, more personal battle begins for Rittner, the hunt for the architect of the Ghost Army.
The hunt begins not with a bang, but in the quiet, methodical cross-referencing of a ghost. While the real war thunders in the distance, Leutnant Rittner is buried in a different kind of battle, a paper war fought in the musty archives of German signals intelligence. He is a man possessed, driven by a need to understand the mind that so perfectly deceived him. The phantom invasion had a conductor, and he is determined to find the name behind the baton. For days, he sifts through piles of intercepted Allied transmissions from the past year. He isn't looking for grand strategic messages, but for the small, forgotten echoes, the faint, anomalous signals that were previously dismissed as procedural errors or testing. And then he finds it, a pattern, a specific, almost imperceptible fist, the unique rhythmic signature of a Morse code operator. It's a fast, flawlessly even cadence, like a metronome. He'd heard it before, buried deep within the cacophony on the night of June 5th, subtly guiding the flow of the false traffic. His search narrows. He cross-references this unique fist with prisoner-of-war interrogations and captured documents. The trail leads to a name that has appeared before, whispered with a mixture of frustration and respect. Captain Leonard Marshall, a former BBC sound effects engineer, recruited not for his knowledge of cryptography, but for his understanding of illusion. His specialty? Sonic deception. He was the man who taught radio operators not just to send messages, but to perform them, to imbue their dots and dashes with the personality of a scared private or a harried logistics officer. The revelation is a gut punch. Rittner, the trained military technician, had been defeated by a showman. He wasn't outcoded, he was outacted. The entire phantom invasion was a radio drama, and Marshall was its writer, director, and lead actor. The flaws in the traffic, the slight signal fade, the occasional repetition, they weren't mistakes. They were deliberate, carefully placed details to enhance the realism. The auditory equivalent of a stagehand rattling a sheet of metal to simulate thunder. Rittner leans back in his chair, the dossier on Captain Marshall lying open before him. He feels a strange, grudging sense of connection to this invisible adversary. They are two sides of the same coin, both masters of the invisible world of radio waves, one seeking truth in the static, the other weaving lies into it. The Ghost Army hadn't been a mere tactical trick. It was a work of psychological art. Its objective wasn't to destroy a bridge or sink a ship, but to attack something far more fragile, the German command's certainty. And it had succeeded, beyond any conventional weapon's wildest dreams. The question now isn't how he was deceived, but what else is a lie. If they could conjure an entire army from the ether, what other deceptions are waiting in the wings? The static in his headphones will never sound innocent again.
Every crackle is a potential lie, every signal a possible mask for another of Captain Marshall's brilliant, deadly illusions.
September 1944. The war has moved on, a storm leaving a scarred landscape in its wake. The Nissen hut stands empty, its door swinging on broken hinges, the ghost of stale smoke and tension long since dispersed by the coastal wind. For Lieutenant Hermann Rittner, the war is over, his part in it ending not with a heroic last stand, but with the quiet humiliation of surrender. Yet the real battle continues within him. He sits now in a sparse POW camp, the memory of those June hours playing on an endless, torturous loop in his mind. He sees the faces of the men who drove off into the darkness, sent to intercept a mirage. He hears the distant thunder of the real invasion, a sound that marked his own professional failure. The weight of the consequences is a physical thing, a cold stone in his gut. How many lives were lost because the reserves were in the wrong place? How many fortifications fell because the 88s were facing empty fields? He is a man haunted not by what he did, but by what he was tricked into causing. And yet, intertwined with the shame is a thread of profound, terrifying awe. He finds himself turning over the mechanics of the deception, not with bitterness, but with the reverence of a student studying a masterpiece. Captain Leonard Marshall hadn't just used radio, he had weaponized imagination itself. He understood that the most vulnerable point in any defense is not the wall, but the mind of the commander behind it. The phantom invasion was a siege upon their certainty, and it had crumbled their walls before a single Allied soldier even hit the sand of Omaha or Utah. This revelation changes everything Rittner thought he knew about war. The future, he realizes, will not be won by the biggest tank or the fastest plane alone. It will be won by the most compelling story. The battlefield of tomorrow is a psychological space, a landscape of perception where a signal in the static can be as decisive as a division of paratroopers. He was among the first to witness this new, terrifying form of combat, a war of narratives fought in the invisible ether. The legacy of the Phantom Army is not just a footnote in the story of D-Day. It is a warning and a prophecy. It proves that a perfectly crafted lie, delivered at the perfect moment, can bend the arc of history. As the world steps into the shadow of the Cold War, the lesson of Captain Marshall's ghostly symphony will not be forgotten. The static will never be just static again.